Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome to the How to Retire from NASCAR DFS podcast. I am your host, Jason Hamlet, and we have ourselves an exciting race lined up for you today. You know, one of the best tracks on the circuit. I'm just joking. I can't even do it. I can't even lie. I don't even have a good intro prepared for this race. Unfortunately, we're at Gateway, kind of a snooze fest. In fact, the only thing Gateway really has going for it that's exciting is its name, Worldwide Technology Racing. That's one of the most exciting things about this track. But lucky for us, we have somebody here who knows a thing or two about boring races, being a huge F1 fan. He's an expert at this stuff, so I think he's going to have us lined up for great success. The master of parades is here from Daily Fan Racing, Ryan Larkin.
Don't hate on F1. Don't start the show off on the wrong foot.
It's easy.
Gateway hasn't been exactly the most thrilling track so far. Definitely a tough track for the next gen to put on a good show. It's honestly a tough track for any racing series to put on a really entertaining show. But that doesn't mean we can't hopefully make some money. So look forward to breaking down the slate with you. At the very least, just talking with you because I get enjoyment out of it. And hopefully we get some excitement and some winning lineups out of it.
Yeah, I asked myself, I was like, what the hell is going on? I'm supposed to be retired, right? This wasn't even a race that's on the schedule. I am busting my ass here to get home because I had stuff going on tonight. Had to push this back, and it's all for Gateway, right? For this track. I honestly don't know how we got here, but I do know how. You mentioned it, right? There is still money to be made. Races like this that, a lot of stuff doesn't typically happen, but that could be good. We don't have to deal with a lot of variance, right? It could be a little bit more predictable. There's money to be made. And frankly, I can, lean on, the advice of somebody who knows what they're doing. That type of stuff typically pays off better at a track like this, right?
Yeah, I don't want to say no variance because there's definitely some areas where this race can get shaken up, typically, through pit strategy. But hopefully long green flag runs, not a whole lot of pit shakeups, and we can kind of pinpoint who the best plays are. I think it's a really interesting race for lineup building. So I'm actually looking forward to that. There are a lot of combinations, a lot of ways you can go, a lot of viable, plays. And so that does create a lot of opportunities for lineup building. And it starts at the top trying to figure out the dominators. But even in the mid-tier, there's a lot of viable place differential options and different drivers who could hit and take a slate. So while I think the race may be boring and I think it might be frustrating at times, I do think there is a lot of fun that can be had building lineups for this one. So I'm excited to kind of break that down for everyone.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into it. I know it's probably a lot of us are finding this podcast on race day. They may have a couple hours to lock, so let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. But if you are just finding this show, please hit that subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so that way you don't miss any episodes moving forward. I will say, I do want to point out, we have a little bit of a break here from now until our next episode. I don't think we come back and have another episode until the Chicago Street Race in July. So if you don't subscribe, there's a chance you might miss us in 3 weeks when we come back. So make sure you hit that subscribe. And as always, if you're missing the content, check out over at Daily Fan Racing, and Larkin get you set up for these next few weeks when we're not here. Right, Larkin?
Yeah, so I talked Jason in the Gateway. There's a really big gap. I thought we were doing Iowa, though. Are we not doing Iowa for first race? I know you're not excited about that one either.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
we had a pretty big gap, and I didn't want to have this empty space on these shows. So I talked Jason into Gateway. He was not interested in Sonoma for good reason. So we got this one, and then we'll have a little break. But yeah, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the video. Tell some people. Keep growing this thing, and who knows, maybe we'll do this every race next year.
What are we up to, 5:30 or something like that?
Yeah, we're around 5:30.
Yeah. So yeah, let's to 600, guys.
200 to start the year, I think, somewhere around there. So it's been a good climb.
Yeah, it's been fun. Let's push to 600. But in order to push to 600, we got to give some people some winning advice. We got to, get some winning lineups, get people having.
Yeah, if anyone's got any, let me know.
Yeah. So let's start by talking about general strategy. I know we kind of touched on it. A lot doesn't happen here at Gateway. In terms of, I feel like once the green flag waves, right, to start a run, not a lot of movement. I feel like, track position is key. So how are we approaching lineup construction today? As far as, let's take us through, how many guys in the top 10 do you feel like you envision starting? And then, how many guys maybe starting in that back half do you feel like you're going to be starting this race? Just to get a gauge of, because I'm feeling like it's a stack to front. Like, tell me if I'm wrong. Like last year's race of seven of the top guys who finished in the top 10 also started in the top 10. So is that the right approach this week?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to be slamming in the guy starting towards the front. It's really going to come down to, the upside though. There's going to be drivers who do get some place differential and that are able to score well. And it's going to depend on dominator points, lap sled, things like that. Hamlin started third, finished second, but he didn't lead any laps. So he wasn't really a great play. Kyle Busch dominated from the pole. Ryan Blaney was extremely fast from the outside pole, led 83 laps. You look at everyone, the top six finishers, five of the top six finishers started inside the top six. The best cars qualify well, finish well. That's pretty typical here. And that's the case with the truck series. That's the case with pretty much every series that runs here. It's really hard to fake your car rotating really well and getting up off the corners here. So if you're able to do in qualifying, that usually translates to the race pretty well. And so we do see a lot of the guys that start up front and finish up front. So that's where the majority of our dominator focus will be, is those guys starting at the very front. That's where it should always be. There is
how many laps this race today?
240. So not a ton, but still a decent amount. Like that, there's a decent amount of dominator points on the table there. If we get kind of a caution-free race, I like a standard 2 dominator build. But the more cautions we see, the more pit strategy that kind of comes into play. It sets things up for maybe a surprise dominator or two to kind of shake things up. The first race here, I think it was Michael McDowell that kind of stayed out on old tires and led like 33 laps or something. That's always in play for anybody. And because that's a possibility, that can kind of shake up a slate without really even paying attention. That strategy call, and, because tires aren't going to matter a ton. Track position is way more important. And so a team could take 2 tires, a team could choose to stay out and really gain track position and take a 30th place car and finish 18th with it, or do something that, they may suck. They may be a poor play on paper, but the right strategy at the right time, getting a little lucky, can take them from a bad play to a good play. I think it was Lane Riggs in the Truck Series race, ran 17th the entire race, stayed out long, got the caution at the right time, and finished like 6th. It's kind of that simple. It's really just all about track position here. And so I'm very much interested in those guys starting towards front, but we are going to, give some love to a lot of randomness in that pit strategy realm, and maybe focus in on some place differential guys in that mid-tier range to round out lineups.
Yeah, we've definitely seen some place differential plays pay off in the past here. And like you said, you do have to kind of get a little bit of lucky with, strategy and how that stuff works out. But, I do want to key in on that point that you did speak about, dominators, right? And that fact that we're probably only looking to concentrate on maybe 2 dominators in this race because, it is a lower lap count, which is, I think, it's important to keep in mind because the last couple of weeks, I think we've had, a lot of laps here, right? We've been focusing on 3 dominators. So you do want to get back to probably a 2 dominator build, especially when you look at the last 2 races here. We've only had 4 guys in the last 2, the only 2 races here, right? We've only had 4 guys who've scored over 20 dominator points in those 2 races. 3 of the 4 started inside the top 5, right? If you want to look at, the other dominator plays here, I think we had, let's just call it the top 8 dominator plays in those 2 races. All looks like 6 of the 8 started inside the top 7, right? So you're looking towards the front.
Busch in 2022 was really the only one that didn't start up front. He started 12th. And right. So, they're coming from up front for sure. I definitely like 2 here. I definitely think there's opportunity for it to kind of get spread out to where we only have 1 or 2 guys that kind of separate themselves. But I do think there's a possibility that it gets so spread out and we get 4 or 5 different leaders and we get fast laps spread throughout the field a little bit and enough cautions and enough kind of weirdness that you only need 1. And then it just becomes about getting the best 4 or 5 drivers in your lineup, which is kind of interesting because it might not just be 2 dominators because 240 lap race with 10 or 12 cautions where 25-30% of the race is under caution and 1 guy leads the majority of it can set up for a situation where there's only 1 main dominator, and then it's just about trying to find the right combination of 4 guys that score like 50 points on average. So It's a weird one. I mean, it's not something we it's definitely not like any short track, and it's really not like any intermediate either. It's kind of its own quirky slate.
Well, let's start getting into these plays. I'm curious to see how it's going to shake out because at least with me glancing at it, I didn't see a ton of the position differential that I like that's going to kind of compete for those top scores. But let's dive into it. I think.
Don't disagree.
What's that?
I don't disagree. There's not a lot out there, but it only takes
You're
one.
right. Let's do it since track position is going to be key here. Let's break this a little bit different than we typically do. Let's, instead of starting from the highest price, let's start from the front of the field, work our way back, right? So let's start with that front row, right? Starting 1 and 2. Some guys you may not have expected, right? If you're just tuning in, these may some names that shock you, right? If you haven't been following along the weekend, we have Michael McDowell starting on the pole for 6,500 and Austin Cindric starting on the outside pole for 6,200, both in Fords. Fords, from what it looks really fast in practice. They qualify well. What are you doing with these 6K guys starting in the front row in a track that we talked about? Track position is going to be key.
Yeah, so I'll throw up this question real quick, just since it's on topic. Full fade McDowell from the pole, and the simple answer is no. McDowell's actually a really good play on a slate like this. So
McDowell led 34 laps here 2 years ago.
Yeah, in 2022, he had the pit strategy, led 34 laps. He finished 9th here last year. Just on the surface, McDowell has been about a 10th or 9th place to 15th place guy here. This track definitely sets up well for his driving style, where it's a heavy braking zone, getting the car rotated. I definitely think there is some carryover for road course racers here at Gateway. We saw AJ Allmendinger have a great run here as well. I think they're able to just find a little bit extra speed compared to what a normal oval is for those type of guys. The other thing that's important here with McDowell is this is a Penske affiliated team. They now get data and information from Penske. And when you look at Penske first, second, and third and 10 lap average, and with their 3 cars, and then you got McDowell out here spanking the field and qualifying, not once, but twice, both rounds. I'm not surprised that that's the case. Track position is going to be vital, obviously, and he's going to be able to retain it. He's going to have the number 1 pit stall, which will be advantageous. He's going to have a path to leading early. I think he can beat Cindric one-on-one here, and I think he could check out and lead a chunk early. It's incredibly hard to pass the leader here. It's probably one of the hardest tracks to pass a leader. And so you have the potential for him to lead 25, 30 laps, which would still be decent, or even lead the whole first stage or lead more than that. Like, it's so hard. Like, Blaney was so much better than Busch last year, but it was so hard for Blaney to get by him. And so you can see that scenario play out where McDowell just holds the lead for the whole first stage, and his price point is super advantageous. He's super cheap, and you're battling a bunch of guys that are going to project for like 25, 30 points at most. There's not a lot of great plays in that range. You could pay up a little bit for like Barry and Gregson and Suarez, but in that range where McDowell is, there's not a lot of great things. You're kind of either hoping Hocevar has a great performance or hoping, Haley from 21st like hits. There's not a lot of really comfortable plays down there. And so for me, it's McDowell and then his teammate Gillen, who starts almost dead last, that are kind of the 2 best options there. And I think McDowell has the ability to finish top 10, lead 20, 25, maybe even more laps, rack in 10, 12. I mean, that car was so fast in qualifying, you have to assume he can get some fast laps in the race and kind of get, 10, 12, 15 dominator points. And sure, he's going to lose some positions by the end of the race, but that's going to be offset by his dominator points. And all of a sudden he's finishing 9th, scoring 36, 38, 40 points. So I think there's a lot of potential from McDowell to reach the value needed at that price point. So I'm not fading him. I think the field's going to be probably 25, 30%-ish just because the price point is so impactful. I could see even going higher. So I'm not fading that at all. And then even Cindric it feels like, man, I want to get off Cindric. He's such a bad driver. He's so gross, but he was second 10 lap average. Again, a road course guy. And keep in mind, his 2 finishes are 11th and 13th here. He led 26 laps from second in 2022. He's had good performances here. The car's quick. Yes, it's hard to pick him over Hamlin, over Bell, over Reddick. Like, there's so many elite drivers in this range where you're like, there's no way Cindric gets it done. But he's got a good pit stall. He's got a fast car. If he finishes 10th or 9th or something, would you be shocked with like 12 fast laps? I wouldn't be. And so he's also in play for a slate where he is so unbelievably cheap. I mean, Cindric is super affordable as well. And so while both these guys have extreme risk, obviously if they finish outside the top 10, that's bad. And then if they drop 20th or something, they murder a lineup. But Austin Cindric's 6,200. If you can get 30 points out of him, there's a good chance he's outscoring Stenhouse and LaJoy and Haley or, Hemrick or Burt. Like, the area is bad. The guy above him is Austin Dillon. You're not playing him. So there's a handful of guys that you're going to play over Cindric and maybe McDowell. But these are probably 2 of the 5 guys in this range that I like and have the ability to score 30, 35 points on speed. Not gambling on, oh, shit, Harrison Burton stayed out and got 35 points through strategy. These guys have pace in their cars, so you can bank on them to hopefully get a good finish because of that.
Yeah, I think I would probably most likely trust McDowell over Cindric, but I think most people probably is going to go that route.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
You guys know how I feel about, Austin Cindric, but I will say, last year's race we had both the pole sitter and the outside pole sitter was both optimal. Do you think that could happen this week in this week?
Wouldn't that be amazing if McDowell and Cindric were optimal? It's not outside.
They were both last year, and they cost a lot more last year. They're over 10K.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly possible. It will come down to, like, do these guys hang and finish inside the top 8 or 10, and do they have enough fast laps and things of that nature? I think, McDowell's a lot more likely than Cindric, but I do think Cindric kind of hangs in this range. I don't think it's a bad play, and you're going to be super different. No one's going to want to play him. So I think there's some ownership leverage there.
All right, let's move on down, guys, to that next row here. A guy who's probably going to be really popular this week, I would imagine, right? Guy who checks all the boxes when you look at, past performances, speed in practice, qualifying, Ryan Blaney, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to make any arguments against Ryan Blaney here starting third, right?
Yeah, Blaney's a great play. Obviously, we've seen the Penske cars dominate here. Blaney did it last year. Logano won here the first race. They also dominate Phoenix, which is probably the most correlatable track that there is. And so we definitely feel really good about the Penske speed on short flat tracks. They even look good at North Wilkesboro. Really, I mean, Logano dominated that race. We've seen them here recently on short tracks look pretty damn good. Seems like they got something figured out from that test that Logano got to do. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Blaney's my pick to win. Spoiler alert. But, the speed is in the Penske cars again here, and I'm always going to lean into that. The one thing I'll say, and this was the case last year and in the previous year, is that all these cars are so close that you may have the speed, but if you end up like 6 at the end of the pit stop, you're not getting to the front. It's not like you're driving from 6th to 1st. It's super difficult to do that. And that's what we saw with Logano in 2022 is he had the best car, but he only led 22 laps in that win. He didn't get to the front until the very end. And so my concern with Blaney is that maybe he kind of doesn't get the lead in the first stage, falls back to 6th because his pit crew is not as good as Hamlin's, not as good as maybe some of these other crews. And then he just kind of battles that track position. Instead of it being a track position game where it's like, oh, you're 10th, it's bad, 11th, it's bad. It's like, no, if you're 5th or 6th, you might not lead at all in that cycle. Mm-hmm. So I hopefully for Blaney's sake, he either gets out front early in stage 1 or is able to get a really good pit stop and get that lead in stage 2. I think he has huge upside. I think Blaney's got the best short run speed in the field. I think he's going to be really good, early in runs. I think he's going to get a lot of fast laps because of that. As long as he maintains his track position, he'll have clean track to rack those fast laps up. That's the positive. But like I mentioned with Hamlin starting 3rd and finishing 2nd and never leading the lap, it's not a guarantee that Blaney, even if he runs top 5 the entire race, actually leads and actually dominates. And so he's probably my top choice for that. I really like him. But there's some really strong picks right behind them. All 3 cars, Bell, Reddick, and Hamlin, are all really good options. And I think Hamlin and Bell might be a little bit better on the long run. So it's tricky being super, super heavy on Blaney, but he is right now one of my favorite plays.
So I think we come in, he's probably going to be the most favorite for Dominator, right? I think he's probably the highest owned guy, right? Probably starting in the top 5 or top 10, yep. Dominator wise, right? So does this, in a race like this, where a guy can get buried by just being 5th or 6th and never hit the front because he's not going to be able to rely on speed. We're not going to see a lot of tire fall off, right? I don't think we're going to vision that. Does that make you more apt to fade a guy, be under the field on a guy like that, and being as though all it takes is him to have, a 0.2 of a second on a pit stop to drop him 3 spots, and he's not going to lead this segment?
Yeah, I think I would say I'd go equal to the field or under if that's my mindset. I'm not really that type of builder. If I'm heavy on Blaney, I'm just heavy on Blaney. Um, but I think for a slate like this, you can really mix and match ownerships. You can play Blaney, you can play Bell, you can play Hamlin, you can mix and match these guys. Use Reddick as a contrarian play. Use um, Bush maybe or Logano or some of these other guys that are contenders. But I really feel like it's kind of a 3.5 horse race. I think Blaney, Bell, Hamlin are the three main guys, and then Reddick's the like a slight step off just because Reddick can be a little up and down. His pit crew's not as reliable. He makes a few mistakes, but I feel like we saw Bell dominate and lead and win at Phoenix. We saw Hamlin look really good at Phoenix. Obviously, Hamlin's great on long runs. He's great on short tracks. Like, it fits really well. Bell's amazing at short flat tracks. Blaney's amazing at this track type. Those are the three best picks heading into the weekend. I mean, I don't think anyone was really off those plays. I think they're probably all in the top 5 of everyone's plays, right? Like, going into the weekend. And so to me, it's really just about mixing and matching and hopefully hitting the right combination of two guys that score 80 points. That's kind of where I'm at. And I do favor Blaney, but I think it could just be Bell and Hamlin. I think Reddick could be really, really strong as well. So it's an interesting dynamic. And I do think in a normal race, all these guys just finish top 5. Like, I think all these guys are just finishing top 5 or 6. So I don't think you're getting a bad score. It's just finding the right combination to be on the winning lineup may be about not having Blaney and having Bell, or having Blaney and not having Hamlin, or, just getting the right combination of these guys up top. And pricing's if you're not playing Hamlin, pricing's not too bad on Blaney and Bell. Like, you can make pretty good lineups with those two and still get a Busher or Logano or a good mid-range guy, and then kind of funnel things out with McDowell's or even place differential cheap guys. So you don't really have to sacrifice a lot this weekend, I feel like. Only in Hamlin lineups do you really have to kind of pivot off of someone. So I think those are the 3 best plays, with Reddick being the 4th, and I'm just going to mix and match those guys and get a ton of them. And, longer green flag runs are going to help Hamlin. He's not going to be good on restarts. That's not his deal. But so if you're playing for a high carnage race, like if you're envisioning it, play Blaney and Bell maybe, or Reddick. But if you're seeing long green flag runs, maybe pivot to Hamlin, who's going to be better on long runs, right? Like, kind of playing it that way is how I would do it, trying to envision how the race would play out. But Hamlin has perhaps the best pit crew on pit road, at least speed-wise. Bell has a fantastic one. They won the pit crew competition. They're obviously amazing. So they have the opportunity to go out there and just maintain that track position, gain track position even over Blaney, and be the best 2 plays as well. So love all those plays.
Well, why don't you tell me how the race is going to play out, right? Let's say I'm
playing
one lineup here, let's say,
okay,
right? And I got Blaney, Bell, Reddick, Hamlin. We know those are all great plays. Like, first off, am I playing 2 of those guys in my one lineup that I'm building? Am I jamming 2 of them in?
I would.
Two of those 4 in, and what is the one guy that, like, you got to jam it if you're playing one lineup of those 4?
Probably Blaney. I mean, I think you can try to leverage the field, but I mean, Blaney's the second favorite to win this race, I think, behind Hamlin. And quite frankly, I think he has an easier path to early domination. I'm a little concerned with Hamlin not getting to the lead because he's not a great short run driver, right? And I do think he's going to be better 20, 30, 40 laps into the run, but we may never see that. We may never get a 50-lap run for him to make his way up through here. But I mean, they're all really good options. I think Blaney's just kind of that chalk play you lean into and just kind of accept it. But Hamlin's also going to be pretty heavily on. The thing with Hamlin is that his ownership's being held down because of his price. And we see that every week. He should be, like, there's some weeks he should be 35, 40%, and he's ending up 24%. And I've kind of, my projections, I've lowered him every single time to the point where I'm like, I feel like he should be 10% higher owned, but he's just not. And a lot of it's due to the pricing. So I think Blaney's going to see the bigger ownership. I think he's got perhaps a faster car, especially on short run. I think he's a little bit more consistent here, and we've seen him smash at this track already. So I'd say Blaney's the guy you would pick first.
Hamlin is like the clear favorite right now, though, by a good margin over Blaney. So I think that's definitely going to steer ownership over to him. I think in the weeks we've been getting him a little under. I think we've been getting him around like maybe the second or third favorite in the race. Not that top guy. top guy I think is going to draw some ownership there. But yeah, it's definitely going to be Blaney, Hamlin up top. As far as the favorites, if you're looking for an ownership pivot, it's going to be off of probably one of those two guys, right? And into let's talk about maybe some guys you might pivot to. Is there any interest in row 4? Right, we know. Like I said, a lot of dominator points come from those top 7 starting positions. So let's talk, Brad Keselowski starting 7th, a guy who seems to be on fire, right? Showing up every week with fast cars, qualified up towards the front again, right? You have the ringing bells going off Keselowski again? It seems like a track type that he would be good at, right? Even though he hasn't really had great performances here so far, but feels like a track he should be good at. You got any interest in Keselowski with the way those Fords are, and then Bubba as well here in this?
So I don't like either Keselowski or Wallace in theory. Like I don't envision a world where Keselowski leads over the 4 guys we just talked about, and that's really hard for me. Same thing with Bubba Wallace. Bubba's cheaper at least, where you can kind of make a salary. What's the word I'm looking for? Fuck it. It doesn't matter. Where you can kind of justify it with salary, right? Yeah. But Keselowski is now what, 9,500. It's a pretty expensive price tag. It's tough to see him leading over those guys. I don't know if they have elite speed on short flat tracks, although it's very surprising again to see Keselowski qualify this far up. This is a surprise. This is not normal. So, and he's also probably the most likely to just be like, screw it, we're taking 2 tires here. And so I think both him and Bubba has good speed. He's obviously got a good qualifying run. All his Toyota friends are right there around him. So I think both these guys have the ability to finish top 5. I think they have the ability to maybe pull a pit strategy call and find the lead for 30 laps, 40 laps, 50 laps or something. But in a normal race, I don't see either one touching the lead. Keselowski's too expensive to just start 7th and finish 5th. So I don't really like the play. And same thing with Bubba Wallace. Like, he's too inconsistent. He doesn't have a lot of upside unless he just randomly finishes 3rd. And that's, let's face it, he doesn't do that. So, to me, they're both just super contrarian plays that I don't really want to invest in them when there's just better options. But on the flip side, we know most of the guys starting in the top 10 are going to finish top 10. We know they're going to score pretty well. There's not going to be a ton of great place differential plays. I just wonder, if you're paying up for Keselowski and getting 42 points out of him, what did you have to sacrifice to get to him? And does the guy you paired with him score well enough? Or are you better just playing a Barry and Gregson combo, or Suarez, or some of these guys with bigger place differential, potential, a Busher, because at some point you got Joey Logano who's going to be in the conversation pretty soon. But like, you have Logano and Busher are going to be pretty chalky plays. You got, Bush and Gibbs who are pretty good options as well. And then you have those high place differential guys that start in the 30s, or late, deep in the 20s, that with the right strategy car, right situation, they can score more than Brad Keselowski if Brad finishes 5th. So it's tough for me to play much of them, especially because they just don't. Brad's been delivering every freaking week now, it seems like, but it doesn't feel like a spot where they would deliver.
Yeah, that was, it makes me feel good to hear you say this, right? Because I was going into this like crap, like I got to play like Keselowski here because, you got to ride the hot hand, right? But like hearing you spell it out like that, yeah, it is going to be hard to imagine him getting up there unless, he hits, 2 tires, which could happen, but you can't really, predict that type of stuff happening.
And the other thing is his price is
9,500 is a lot, right? But you would be playing him in place of, your Bell, your Hamlin, somebody like that, right? So he's really saving you salary there.
The
right?
one thing I'll say about those 2 plays, is if you're building, and this is my argument with Logano, is where I built a lineup. I built a dummy lineup every week for my league, and it had it was McDowell, Logano, Blaney, Bell, Gregson, and Hocevar. And I'm still going to play that, so please don't match it. But that lineup has Logano and Blaney, dominator threats. I had Bell, dominator threat. And McDowell sitting on the pole is also a dominator threat. If you're not playing Hamlin and you're getting Logano and or Keselowski and or Wallace, or Gibbs and Bush can be thrown into this, you're getting a 3rd dominator option at a mid-tier price. So if they do get 20 fast laps or whatever and finish 4th, they're good. They're great plays. Because there's not going to be a ton of place differential plays that outscore them. They're going to become really good. And the way you build your lineup, depending on how you spend that salary, will make Keselowski a good play, even though it doesn't feel like he should be. And so I'm not writing them off. I'm just less happy about them. Like I'm less confident. But there are ways you can build lineups where you still get Bell and Blaney, but you still get a Logano or Keselowski in your lineup as well.
So you're telling me I got to add him back into the pool? He's back in the pool, guys. He's back
one lineup. Then no, you don't.
All right, let's move on. We're hitting row 5 here, which is good. We spent a lot of time in the top 10. This is where a lot of the points are going to come from. So I'm sure it's going to pick up here soon. Kyle Busch and Ty Gibbs here in row 5. You kind of touched on this group here. I mean, it looks, again, Kyle Busch, right? I mean, he's the one guy who's scored a ton of dominator points in both races we've raced here. Do you think that he can provide that type of upside again this week?
So I don't think he will. But that doesn't mean he's a bad play. We're still talking about a guy who now price point wise is under 9K. He's 8.8K. Ty Gibbs is 8.6K. They're basically the same play. Gibbs has a lot of history here that's going to put people on him. You know, I think last year was very much aided by the track position. The pit crew never let him down, and he was able to retain the lead, right? Great on restarts, and track position was so vital. He was just able to keep the lead and lead all his laps and win. The year before that, he's driving for Joe Gibbs Racing, which is a completely different environment, right? We see what Hamlin and Bell and all these guys look like. JGR is elite on short flat tracks. Like that's always been the case. So last year's win, while super impressive, I don't think is going to correlate to this year as much. I think RCR still step off the Gibbs cars and the Penske cars on this track type. So it's hard for me to see him beating that whole group of guys. But I do think he's a guy that can finish top 5. I do think he's a guy that can click off some fast laps. But he's going to be hit or miss. I can also see a scenario where he finishes 15th. Gibbs is a fine tournament play because he's 8,800, similar to Keselowski, but with a little bit more safety because he's cheaper and offers 3 more place differential points. If you want to, it's just a little nicer that he offers those points. Gibbs is the real play here, though. I mean, we're all talking about the Gibbs cars, or I am. I'm sure everyone else is, but Gibbs, the road course thing, where I think road course guys have a very good feel for the track. Gibbs look good in practice. I think this is a really good spot for Gibbs. Looking at the odds, he actually has pretty good odds to win this race, which is he's plus 800. He's the 5th favorite to win this thing, which is pretty impressive over Reddick, over Truex and Busch and Keselowski and Byron and all those guys. A lot of people are expecting him to have a really good race and contend, and I do think that's plausible. His price point and the fact that if he finishes like 4th or 5th with 10, 15 fast laps, he's going to score pretty well, makes him a really good tournament play. I'm preferring Logano as this type of play, but Gibbs is another fantastic option of a guy that should have a car capable of finishing top 5 and scoring really well. So I really like Gibbs in tournaments.
Yeah, I like the Gibbs call this week. I know we went back and forth on Gibbs last week, but yeah, you're definitely gonna get him in a much lower ownership. I feel like this week when you look at those guys who are priced around him and where they're starting. So yeah, I definitely like that call. Race winning upsides. That's what we got.
By the way, we haven't complained about last week too much, but holy hell, NASCAR sucks.
I know, right? Yeah,
God,
terrible race.
They don't know how to stop screwing up.
I like to bring the jet dryers out and to do all that BS and get us all waiting and then just to what a shit show that was, and then to call it like that. It's just,
if you went to the race and that happened, would you ever go back? I can't imagine spending my time staying there till midnight and they'd be like, nah, we're done.
Yeah, no, imagine you being there with your kids or something. Like, it's okay, guys, we've waited this long. It's okay though. We're gonna get started. I don't know if my kids are that late, but you know what I mean, right? And then finally wait, and then sorry, kids, we're not gonna race. We're going home with nothing.
Pretty rough.
And Christopher Bell won, so have that. Yeah, that was terrible. And we still don't have. I guess we'll start talking about these the Hendricks cars here, since that's what we're coming down to. These next 2 rows, we have 3 Hendricks cars, and Joey Logano, we kind of already spoke about him quite a bit here, but the other guy there is Kyle Larson. Still don't have his waiver either, right? That's the other thing that freaking NASCAR is just, what the hell?
I have a theory on this. I don't know if I want to say it.
Say it. What's your theory?
All right, so most people know, or most people that know me, know that I hate conspiracy bullshit. I hate when people get on here like Dale Jr. is going to buy himself 2 cup teams and all this. Shut up. But I kind of have a conspiracy here where it's usually the prophets that have the best conspiracies. But Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske and Stuart Haas in 2311, they've been dealing with this charter system nonsense where they're trying to get more money for their teams through the charter, situation. They're trying to make them permanent. And this is a back and forth that's been happening for 2 years now. It's basically become a pissing match. And the teams are not getting what they need from NASCAR. This is why Stuart Haas is getting gutted. That's why they're being sold, because NASCAR's not giving in, not giving the teams what they need. And Gene Haas is like, I'm not funding this anymore. I'm done. And so in my head, I'm envisioning a world where Jeff Gordon's in Indy, Kyle Larson's in Indy, Roger Penske owns the Indy Series in Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they're just sitting there like, yeah, we're going to keep Larson here. We're going to make a power play here. We're going to say that this is more important. And so they keep that, they keep Larson, NASCAR's best driver, out of their race to be in another series. And then NASCAR's like, really? You're going to make that stand? You're going to make that call? And I think it's just a pissing match at this point. I think NASCAR's pissed that they didn't make their best driver come back and race the race. And I think the owners are just pissed that they're not getting what they need out of the charter deal. And so I think it's actually less about Kyle Larson and getting a waiver, because they give waivers out like free handouts to the homeless. I was going to say something worse, but they give out charters for anything, waivers for anything. They don't care about the waiver, right? I've never seen a waiver denied. No, I've never seen it denied once. So I'm just thinking it's a pissing contest. I think NASCAR is trying to say, you did that, we're going to prove a point. And it's stupid. Like, obviously you're not going to keep Kyle Larson out of the championship. Like, that makes no sense. So the whole thing as a show, it just makes NASCAR look worse. It just makes them look stupid. Just give them the waiver and move on, because you're not fooling anybody. And if you do it, then I think it's only going to be more of a pissing match. I think it's just going to result in more conflict. And it's sad that, Gene Haas is like, I'm not funding this anymore. We're dismantling our team. But that was NASCAR's doing. And now we're going to see a bunch of other things. So that's my conspiracy theory, is that, Hendrick and Penske kind of got together and said, we're going to, kind of be smart asses and keep our driver here. And I think NASCAR's not happy about it. Just like they wouldn't have been in the 70s or 80s, if one of their owners were stepping out like that.
That's interesting. I could definitely see NASCAR pulling some bullshit like that too. I can. I think it's more though, like we're going to get back on track here, I promise, guys. But I think it's more just the fact that it is a unique situation, right? To where the driver has chose to miss the race, right, for another race, right? So, like at some point, you have to ask yourself, like, we are all in agreement, like, yeah, give them the waiver for this, but like, what if a driver decides to miss 2 races to race another series, right?
I don't care. Like, what's the matter? If
Patrick Mahomes misses Game 7, it doesn't matter if they miss 3. Does it matter? Does it matter if they miss 3? Does it matter? I mean, at some point,
no waivers, none. The process is stupid. It makes no sense. If you win a race, you're in. If SVG shows up at Chicago, races one race and win, if he can find a damn ride, he's in the playoffs. I don't care. If you're winning in is the thing you're doing, that's what it should be. That period.
Right.
Otherwise, give us a real format, a season-long format where we crown a real champion. Otherwise, it's all bullshit anyways. So Larson's in. He can miss 3 races and go run his World of Outlaws nonsense, or I guess it's high limit, whatever.
But you can't have that. You can't have a guy come in and win and then not race.
You're not going to do it because there's way more money in NASCAR.
Right. I know that. But I'm saying that's what I feel like is that they're worried about opening the Pandora's. Is they have to address the fact that, okay, what happens if every driver wants to miss a race now? Like, now we have to deal with that for every driver. Like, they are setting a precedent, right? I mean, it's something they have to think about, right? Like, so.
Right. I think the rules are all stupid. Like,
it is stupid.
So
they painted themselves into this box, right? They've done this themselves by not having a rule book that's clear. Like, it should be there, and like, this is it, no waivers.
It is
like,
clear. If you miss a race,
they've given waivers for people. The fact they've given waivers to drivers who have been suspended is the stupidest thing in the world. Like, you're punishing them and saying, we don't want to punish you that bad, though. Like, it's so freaking retarded.
It's the worst. But anyways, we should digress.
We should move on.
Yes. All right. So I want to talk about 11th to 17th. Because I think this group kind of goes together mainly because, all the Hendrick cars are in it, right? Mm-hmm. Byron 11th, Larson 13th, Bowman 14th, and Elliott 17th. all the Hendrick cars were bad here last year. Larson
Mhm.
ended up getting a finish, but they were bad. They're not really much better this time around.
Mm-mm.
They're not, and it's more so because Penske's elite here, Gibbs are elite on this track type. You're really just talking about a situation where there's so many better cars. Do I think Larson can finish 5th again? Yeah, sure. That's a great finish, but it's not great for DFS. His price dictates that it's probably not going to be very well. I don't see Kyle Larson leading. I don't see William Byron leading. And so their price points are going to dictate that they're not good plays. Chase Elliott has more place differential. Ross Chastain has more place differential. Those are decent plays for that reason. If they can find ways to 5th or 6th or 7th, they can be good. But do we feel like Elliott and Chastain can finish 5th or 6th? I certainly don't. So it's difficult to play them. And then Bowman, who's finished top 10 almost every single week, feels like he could be an okay play for the price. So you can kind of justify it from that aspect. But what are you getting, an 8th or a 9th place finish? I don't feel really good about any of the Hendrick guys. And then even Ross Chastain, I'll lump in there. I don't feel good about that play either. I don't feel like it's a guy where I'm just sitting there like, yes, he's going to finish 7th at a high rate. Chastain, in terms of a track type, this feels like it fits him. Restarts matter a lot. He can hold
Phoenix
track.
is good at, right?
What's that?
He's good at Phoenix, right? You said this.
He's good at. He's great at Phoenix. He ran. So he finished top 10 in both stages last year and finished 22nd. And that's the most Ross Chastain thing ever. Look at all his results this year. He's very rarely finishing top 10. He's very rarely getting the results he should. And it's so hard to trust a driver who's just inconsistent. You're like, I know you have speed, but things just aren't working out. And now when I'm looking at a field of an entire JGR 2311 crew, Penske, then you got to battle Larson, Byron. Like, it's hard for me to imagine Chastain finishing super high. Mm-hmm. So if he can finish like 7th or 8th, it'll be a good play. I don't know if it's optimal. It just feels like a contrarian play. Elliott feels like a contrarian play. Larson, for his range, and Byron as well, they don't feel like they're going to outscore Hamlin or Bell or Blaney or like. And so I'm looking at this whole range and I'm like, I don't really like him. And then Corey LaJoie starting 15th is just like, I don't even know how to stomach that. The only guy I like in this range is Joey Logano. Like it's pretty simple. He was the fastest guy in 10-lap average. He's really, really good at this track type. He won here, in 2022. He won at Phoenix in 2022. Penske's been dominant on this track type. He just won at North Wilkesboro in dominant fashion. The car is going to be super, super fast. His price point is extremely favorable, and I think he's a guy that can finish top 3 or lead laps or win the race. Like, Logano has that much speed in his car. Now, it may just be
they
Hamlin.
Can get to the lead on strategy too. Like, they know how to do that as well.
It may be a Hamlin and Bell show, especially on the long run. Like, I could definitely see those guys do really well. But to me, Logano's got the best speed of anyone in this range. I mean, Logano just screwed up in turn 2 in qualifying. He flat out screwed up and then made up 2/10 on the field in 3 and 4. Like, his car's super fast. I think he's going to be I think he's going to finish top 5. Like, I truly feel that way, or maybe 6, but I think he's going to score well. And his price point is pretty solid. Like, it's not like you're going out of your way to spend a ton of salary. And that's also a benefit. He's 9,300. So I feel like that's a guy that's going to get a bunch of fast laps. He's going to finish up towards front. And he's my favorite tournament play. Doesn't mean that like Gibbs or Busch or Bowman or Chastain or even Elliott, all in that range, can't also finish 5th. It's just, I think Logano has the actual speed in this car, whereas these guys probably qualified where their speed actually indicates that they are. And so I don't trust them as much. And I just don't think they have as much speed as these other guys.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said there. As you look at this range, it's really hard to see a lot in the data that's pointing you to the Hendrick cars, which is so crazy to think about. But, I mean, it is where we're at. Of course, you know how things can flip, and with track position, you could find a situation where three of these guys get up front and end up with control of this race. But, yeah, they have to luck into that. They ain't going to drive up their way up there. At least I don't see it. Let's go down to starting the 18th position here. Austin Dillon. We don't have to talk about him, right? I think probably the next guy you probably want to talk about here is Martin Truex, starting 19th, right? I mean, is this a guy at 10,500? Does he provide enough position differential here in this range to score with some of those dominators around him in that price point?
I think Truex has a really fast car. And I think he's a lot better 19th, but track position is going to be super important. And I don't know how he gets all the way up to the lead. His price is pretty steep. I was trying to build some lineups. He's 500 more.
We know his crew chief is really good at putting him in positions at gaining track position and getting him in the right spot.
That's
right?
not the case. Truex is 500 more than Bell. He's harder to fit in the lineups. You have to make sacrifices to get him in. And the dominator potential is just simply not there based off where he starts. Like, it's so much harder for him to get there. He's a contrarian play in that range. He's fine. I think his floor is pretty good. Like, I think he's going to walk away with 45 or 50 points pretty consistently from the spot. It's just that's not enough at 10,500.
Is he a cash play?
I don't mind it in cash. It's just if Blaney and Hamlin are 50% owned each in cash or whatever the hell, that probably what they should be, then you're needing one of them not to hit. If you play Truex, you can't play those two. And so it's just kind of you're pivoting off of Hamlin or Blaney. So you need one of the main dominators not to hit. And I think that's just as risky. I think Hamlin and Blaney can match him score-wise, and they have way more upside. So I just want to do that. But he's a fine. Yeah, I mean, it's fine in theory, but man, I think he finishes like 7th and scores all right. It's just the price is too expensive. And I'm only going to play him in the hopes that I'm being different and that Hamlin and or Bell and or Blaney and or the other good plays have issues.
All right, let's get to that's the front half of the field done. Let's start talking about the back half here. Let's start Carson Hocevar, Justin Haley, Eric Jones, Chase Briscoe. Any interest in any of those guys here starting 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd?
Let's go all the way down 25th. Derek Kraus too and Stenhouse. So Kraus is a no-go for me.
Not really? Kraus at 3rd, 25th? You don't like that?
I'm not interested.
Track position. He's got it.
No, I'm not interested. Pass. Hard pass. Eric Jones is
expensive now, right?
Yeah, Eric Jones was pretty bad in practice. They seem to get it kind of fixed. I don't feel super good about it. Chase Briscoe hasn't really been great recently. And I'm not super confident in their ability to finish top 15. A guy like Chase Briscoe finishing 18th is only going to score 30 points. And at his price point, that doesn't work. At Eric Jones' price point, that doesn't work. So you need top 15 finishes out of Jones and Briscoe. I don't think that happens on speed. And so for me, they're guys I want to only use as super contrarian plays in the hopes that they use strategy to get up there, right? And I don't super like them. Haley, at least, is cheap enough that you can kind of stomach it. But, man, 21st is difficult. He's been really solid. I do think he's a guy that can finish 15th, 16th, 17th, that range on a good day. He's obviously done that a lot recently. But it's like there's no room for error. If he finishes 24th, it's a bad play, and that's got me super scared. Hocevar is a guy that I feel like has actual speed. He's a guy that has the actual top 15 ability on pure pace. We saw it last year here where he just kind of drove through the field and made LaJoie look silly. He hops in LaJoie's car and just looks way better. His practice speeds were pretty strong for Hocevar, so I do think he's a guy that has the pace that I don't think the rest of this range has. So I do like Hocevar, and he's still cheap. So he's a guy that I think you can get 30 points out of, at a cheap price point and round out lineups with. I feel good about that in tournaments. I don't feel great about it in cash, but in tournaments, I feel good about it. Haley, I think, is fine too because, quite frankly, he's outperforming these guys week in, week out right now. Justin Haley's outperforming them. So while it's still hard to wrap my head around the fact that that's happening, it's happening. And so we should give Haley a little love there. Jones, Briscoe, I think are contrarian plays. I know Briscoe can be good here. It's hard to really put a lot of investment in that. And then Stenhouse on short flat tracks is kind of a no-go for me. It's typically not something he exceeds at. But if any of these guys just randomly find themselves 14th, they're good play. So I think you can kind of mix all of them in at a small percentage. I don't feel good about any of them. I think Hocevar is my preferred play just because I think he has legit speed compared to these other guys. But they're all okay to an extent.
Yeah, I like the Hocevar call there. I do probably lean more towards myself, Hocevar and Haley there in that range because they, their price point there compared to those other guys. I think they all have very similar upside in that regard and cheaper price point. But, I think we've crossed off a lot of guys here in this 11th through about 25th range. We picked out a couple plays there we like, but we've crossed off a lot, so we should be shrinking our player pool. It sounds like for this race as we talk through this. But let's start talking. Maybe start liking some guys here towards the back. Chris Buescher, right? I mean, this is going to be a no-brainer player here, right? Starting 26, guy's been hot on fire. Penske, the Fords, everybody looks fast, right? Doesn't have a whole lot of speed in practice, but does have a good finish here, right? 12th or something like that. So do we like Buescher?
Yeah, let's talk Buescher, Gragson, and Barry here, because I'm even going to throw Suarez in.
Hemrick. You want to talk Hemrick too? He's in there.
So Buescher, Gragson, Barry, and Suarez. Let's talk about Hemrick and Burton real quick. These guys are very good. They do have the ability to fluke it. Now, the thing that Hemrick not being good does, and they've done this actually multiple times this year, is they have the ability to do something awkward in pit strategy, and that gives them the positions that they need. I think it was Dover. He stayed out
like a few times, hasn't he? Yeah.
And so, they have the ability to kind of be different strategy wise because they know they're just a 28th place car. So that kind of actually makes them somewhat viable. But anyways, I don't really like Hemrick on speed. That's just a super random play if you're just trying to save salary. Same thing with Burton. Burton's a little awkward. All his teammates are great. I can see Burton driving right up into like 20th and being an okay play. But man, he's just so bad. Like it's so hard to trust him. The real plays that I think all the ownership is going to be on are going to be Buescher, Gragson, and Barry. I think Suarez is an interesting one just because I don't think he's a 31st place car. I think he's like a 21st place car. And then if he cracks the top 20, it becomes a great play. So Buescher's the obvious one. Buescher's going to be everyone's favorite little place saver to play in this range. He's going to see a ton of ownership. The issue I have with this play is last year he started 27th to finish 12th, and it's a good score. But what was his price last year?
I can find it for you. Let me see.
Don't screw me here.
7,500.
7,500. Well, he's $1,000 more than that this year, right? I think the price is a little bit of a hindrance there. But if you get like 45 points from him, it could fall into the optimal at 8,500. I could see that working out. But you have plays like Gibbs, like Busch, definitely like Gibbs more than Busch, but like Gibbs, like those guys in that range, that Logano specifically also that are kind of right in that same price point that could finish 5th with fast laps and just outscore him. And so I'm a little concerned with paying 8,500 for a guy that scores 42 points and then him just being outscored by guys like Gibbs and that ilk. So, he's a safer play. He's a great cash option. I think he's a great play in general. I don't think he'll be too far off. Chris Buescher delivers at an extremely high rate, right? Like extremely high top 15 rate from him. So I feel pretty confident that he's going to give you a good score. I would just say if you're looking to be a little bit different, he's going to see a ton of ownership, and there are guys that can just outscore him by simply finishing 5th. And so I don't think it's a given that he's optimal like he was last year. One, because the salary is going to kind of hurt him. But it's a great play. If you play him, it's not a bad thing. I just think high ownership. And I don't think he finishes top 10. I don't think he actually gets up there. So I am capping his upside. But if he finishes 9th, I wouldn't be shocked either. And that would be a phenomenal score.
Yeah, Buescher, just before you get to Gregson, because I'm about to tee you up for this. Buescher last year was 7,500 and started 27th. Noah Gragson, 7,500, starts 27th.
There we go. I've been wrong on Gragson too much this year, and that's got me worried. He was fantastic at Phoenix. Barry started at the very back at Phoenix, and I was heavy on him. He did well in the middle part of the race and then faded back. Gragson finished like top 10 and was a smash play. I think he scored 60-some points in that slate. And when you look at Phoenix and you look at the difference between what Barry and Gragson did, it's just hard to not envision both things happening. It's hard not envisioning Gragson or Barry finishing 12th, and it's also hard not envisioning them finishing 27th and just not being good plays. I think they both have good upside. Barry was 17th in 10-lap average. I don't have it up in front of me, but he had a good 10-lap average overall pace. He's been on a really good run lately. He's been top 15.
You think these two guys might show up and run 27th? You said they haven't seen nothing of that out of them this year like that.
No. I think they run 24th. Like in a bad race, I can see them just being 24th.
Barry's
right?
been running amazing though. Like you think he just
You're
show up
right.
and run 24th here? I don't know.
I'm not saying that, but someone has to finish 24th.
Right. Daniel Hemrick will finish. No.
So when you look at it and you look at the guys, like, yes, I think they can beat Kraus. I think they could beat Stenhouse. I think, Jones could struggle. I think Briscoe, I think they're probably better than Briscoe, even though they're teammates. So, yes, they're Austin Dillon. Like, there's guys in front of them that I think they can just kind of go up and pass. But they're not going to have track position. They're not going to have good pit situations. They might just kind of get trapped here. And I'm just a little worried about that. I'm a little worried about them actually finding their way to the top 15. I think, for Gragson or Barry, like finishing 18 is going to be a decent score, but they're over 7K. It's not like they're 6,200 and giving you 32 points.
True.
They're a little too expensive. So I think there's a lot of scenarios where they can miss because of their price and because they only get to like 19th or 23rd or whatever. I don't think there's enough obviousness in their speed. But I do think their upside is fantastic, which makes them really good plays. I think Gregson's going to be the more preferred play just because people have seen him deliver it more often. But Barry's, as you said, on a really good run here. He's been fantastic the last month and a half. Short flat tracks, Rodney Childress pretty good at finding setups for. He was much better in practice than this qualifying effort shows. So I do think he'll be able to have a decent race. The other thing that I like about these plays is they're kind of right in that range where maybe the guys running 32nd go a lap down, but these guys don't. And that kind of keeps them in the flow of the race until the very end. And that gives them the opportunity to pull that strategy call. That gives them the opportunity to avoid some carnage and find their way to where you need them to be. So I really like the plays. Don't be shocked if they're just 21st.
I love Barry this week. I love him.
I do too. I've come around to the fact that he could be a top 15 guy for us. But I'm also extremely concerned about the fact that he had a very bad start to the year. He screwed me at Phoenix, and he screwed me in a couple other spots. So I want to be somewhat careful of smashing him in there as well.
All in. All right. We already talked Harrison Burton. Talk about Daniel Suarez starting 31st, right? Here's a guy who has been on the struggle bus, right? I don't think you can look at any of his past results, at least in my opinion, of how he's ran at places in the past. Because this season, I feel like has just been abysmal for this team. I mean, do you think how much hope you got in Daniel Suarez moving forward here from 31st?
Do you think they won that race and are just like trying a bunch of shit, or do you think he's that bad?
I don't know. I mean, they just are just running like dog shit. Like not even like just having bad luck, just like getting passed by Harrison Burton at times. Like just
yeah. I mean, pretty much.
I haven't even looked at his results. I got to see what he's actually finished because it just seems
it's a lot of 22nd and 24th place finishes. I mean, that's really what it is. Here's my thing with Suarez. He's under 7K, so we're starting to get a little bit cheaper here. He starts 31st. So if he gets to that 22nd, 21st range, he's scoring over 30 points. Not great. But if he just cracks into the top 20, if he just finds his way to 18th, he started 31st and finished 18th. I think that's Dover. Sorry, I'm looking at race
4 of the last 5. He's finished 24th or worse.
Yeah.
And that's not right now. That's running.
Yeah. So the 31st finishing 18th was 38.5 points with 1 fast lap. That's kind of what I'm hoping for him as a play, is that he gets to 18th and he scores 38 points. I think that's a viable option. I think that's a viable thing to happen to him. So while I don't think he's a 31st place guy, he's definitely probably more of a 24th place guy. But the race kind of breaks his way. He could be an 18th place guy. And so for that reason, he's a good play. Do I love him? Do I trust him at a high level? No. But I think he can get there. Similar to like how if Barry or Gragson finish 18th or 17th, it starts becoming a pretty good play. And the exact same thing applies to Ryan Preece.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Preece is in that same, but Ryan Preece has been awful. He's been flat out awful. And so it's really hard when you got a guy that's finishing 26 or worse in 3 of the last 4 races to be like, yeah, I'm going to play him. And
this
so
is a track that Preece should be good at, though. Like this,
you would think, but this is also a great example of like someone has to finish 27th, and Austin Dillon has become that guy. Ryan Preece has become that guy. Daniel Suarez has become that guy. And I feel like we kind of just have to accept it to an extent. Is that, yes, like I want Austin Dillon to be what he was in the old car when there was actual tire fall off and all these other things, but it doesn't exist anymore. And now Austin Dillon's just a 28th place guy. And I think that's kind of where we are with Priest. I think they're obviously struggling. Like,
it's really like just in Martinsville is the only thing you've gotten Priest to be any worth a damn.
Yeah. So for me, like Priest and Suarez are plays based off of the fact that like if they manage the top 28, they're good. So if something happens, it's a good play. It works out mathematically that it could be okay, but it's just tough to trust them. It's tough to trust plays that are just kind of stuck in this range.
I agree. Yeah, they could definitely go lap down pretty quickly too.
Jason agrees with me. Woohoo!
Yeah, we've agreed with you a lot. I'm not being very argumentative today. Let's go. Last four guys here. Round this bitch up. We got John Hunter Nemechek, Cody Ware, Todd Gilliland, and Zane Smith. How much interest do you have in these? I mean, John Hunter Nemechek is 5,500 now, starting 33rd. Like that seems like a crazy cheap price, right?
But he also sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, so and this is a good example of a driver where you're sitting.
He's better than Priest in them, though, right? He's better than Priest and Dillon and them, right?
30th at Charlotte. Now these are intermediates, but 30th and 31st in his last two races. It's so hard to feel good about him. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 finishes of 30th or worse in his last 7 races, I think.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're right.
I can't in good faith say, yeah, John Hunter Nemechek's a great play. Now, on the flip side of that, you're right. He's starting deep in the field. If he, finds his way up a little bit, it's a good play, especially for the price. Reasonably speaking, he should finish 27th or 26th or something, right? Like in an average race. So hopefully he scores 20 points. He's only 5,500. The issue is that he was the worst car in practice, the worst car in practice by far. And his teammate wasn't much better. They just didn't have speed. They were struggling massively. And I don't think there's speed in this car. So it's not that like, I don't like him because he's just been sucking all year. It's the fact that his car just looked bad in practice. So now I got a driver who's not getting good results and he's got a bad car. And so I'm not super comfortable in it. I think everyone's favorite play is going to be Todd Gilliland, and that makes a lot less sense. He's just way more consistent. He does a lot better. When you're looking at him
on the pole,
17th or better the last 3 races. He had a pretty good result. Really, almost every race, it feels like he's got pretty good results. 17th at Phoenix. He's a solid driver. And when he's able to get track position, he holds it and he does a good job. I feel like he's a guy that can get top 25, do okay, or he can find the top 20 and score massively. So Gillen's the favorite play by most people. It's very interesting that McDowell could be on the pole and this guy could be 35th. It's super, super intriguing how that works out. But hopefully they can kind of get that car righted and he can get, a good finish out of it. 6,400 though for Todd Gilliland, very interesting. So used to him being in the mid 5s and, Coke 600 is 6,500. This week, 6,400. It is a little tougher to play him. When he was 5,500, it's a no brainer. I would just smash the hell out of it. A little harder to justify it, but still a very, very good play. Especially for the range. When you look what's around them, it's like Austin Dillon, Cindric, you have to kind of get scared. It's scary. Stenhouse, Husqvarna, LaJoy, Haley. There's not a lot below him. So it's definitely a great option. Zane Smith has been struggling massively, but he starts dead last. His floor is like 8 points. He's not scoring any less.
Cheap starting dead last, right?
I think he's probably my favorite cheap play just because, he probably runs 29th. But he's super cheap, and I got 18 points out of him. But if it comes through where he finishes 22nd, it's a great play for the price. So I think Zane's a lot better than he's shown this year, but he's definitely getting his ass kicked. And so it's tough. He's wrecked a lot. He's gotten bad finishes, but I think in a clean race, he can finish 27th and score okay for the price point, and the floor helps. Harrison Burton
32nd here in 2022 and finished 17th. I don't know. I forget what he was driving then.
He was driving the 17 car when Buescher was out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So Zane's not this bad, but something's not clicking there. Where I'm not playing Cody Ware. I'm not doing it. If you have a situation where you're getting Hamlin, you're getting Blaney, you're just smashing in really high end guys, and they all hit, then maybe Ware works. But this isn't a 320 lap race, isn't it? There's not as many dominator points out there. There's not as many reasons to do that. I just don't think super punting with Ware makes sense. I think Burton and Zane and Nemechek and those type plays, Suarez, Priest, they can randomly finish 17th and be an optimal play. And that's why you push them in. I'm not really looking to just play for salary purpose. I'm hoping that someone randomly hits. That can also be Hemrick. That can also be someone a little less trustworthy. But it's all those plays aren't great. They're going to run 30th on pace or 30th place cars. It's just if they can gain the track position, they're all within a couple tenths, and track position matters so much that they can just retain that track position and get a good result. So they all have some viability to an extent, but Nemechek may just be 28th. Zane Smith may just be 30th. They may all just kind of finish where they are because guess what? They are the worst drivers in the field.
How do you feel after that, huh? After spending an hour talking about Gateway, how do you feel?
Not good.
Not good? Yeah. We did it, though.
I really like the plays I like, but I got my ass kicked today. Like, I got my ass kicked. Like, I got a truck and Xfinity doubleheader. I got two screens going on. And every other lap, one of my guys is having an issue. Like, I'm watching and I'm like, how is this even possible? Like, the law of averages. Like, this is impossible.
No, it's not. Trust me. I've been there for about 3 years, dude.
That's what's happened where I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, so he has an electrical issue. He blows a tire. How did he spin out lap one? What the fuck? Like, it's just a procession of bad luck where I'm just sitting there like, yeah, I love these plays. I love Blaney. I love Logano. I think Hamlin and Bell are going to be really strong. I think these are the best place differential plays. I think that, dude, the second we get in this race and there's a weirdly timed caution, it all gets thrown out the window. Yeah, and so it can be like, for instance, in the truck race, Christian Eckes had the best truck. He comes in at the end of stage 2 running second. He leaves pit road in 14th because of a bad pit stop. Drives all the way back to second. But in that time, Chalk Corey Heim has a perfect stop, comes out effectively in the lead, and leads the final stage and wins. And it's like, if Christian Eckes just restarts second or third or right in that range, he probably wins that race. But it didn't happen. And so Gateway has the ability for anyone who gets the lead to just smash. It's super hard to pass the leader. One bad pit stop can really take a play out of being an elite play. And so it's really hard to ignore everyone or to speak in absolutes, because like, I'm super afraid of Brad Keselowski just being like, I'm taking 2 tires right here and then leading 40 laps. And so I feel good about it. I'm just nervous because, quite frankly, I got my ass kicked today. I didn't lose a ton of money, but I'm just sitting there watching all this bad things happen. I'm like, anything can happen. And that's NASCAR DFS, and that's why it's kind of fun, but it also makes me nervous because I want everyone to watch this to win money, right? Like, I want them to be successful, and I'm saying these things about drivers, and I'm just sitting there like, wow, Christopher Bell could be the one guy. Like, we can talk about 8 guys that can dominate the Coke 600 or 10 guys that are in there, and Bell's like my 9th guy, but he gets the lead and he wins, right? Like, it could be that simple. And that's where it gets frustrating.
Yeah, this sport will definitely humble you, right? But you know what? The good news is it doesn't matter whether you just smashed these 2 slates today, right? Or if you had trouble, no one's going to care anyway, because everybody's only cared about what you're going to give them next, right? So let's give them the road work and the path to this slate, right? Let's start with round it out here with our core 4 plays that you think they should be, building their lineups around for today's race.
By the way, has anyone noticed that Jason looks extra crispy here recently? We bought him a camera so he looked better, get a little bit more HD in our lives here. So I don't know. I just want to point that out. I think it's really cool. I think Jason looks.
My Wi-Fi has helped 3 episodes in a row. So
you literally cut out them on my screen the moment you said. I mean, literally the moment you said that. I don't know if it did it on the actual stream, but the moment you said it, that was awesome.
Thanks, of course.
But yeah, Jason and I both got new internet. He got a camera. We've tried to upgrade our production a little bit. I got too much lighting going on, so I'm a little whiter today than I should be. But anyways, hope you guys liked it. Core 4. This is This is a fun one because I'm gonna trust myself. Blaney, Logano, I think are two core plays that I'm really, really heavy on. Really loving those guys. I think Buescher is a core play because we're gonna just have to play a decent amount of them regardless. You're just gonna be in on that play, especially in cash. You're just gonna have so much invested in him monetarily that it's hard not to call him a core play, right? Like that's what core means fundamentally. And I think it's it's either McDowell or Gilliland for that final spot. And it depends on how you want to do it. Do you want the guy that can potentially lead the first half but drop a little bit, or do you want the place differential play that you can hope can just get you 35 points? And I think both have the ability to kind of land at about 35 points at the end of this race. And so it's like, which one do you feel more comfortable with? I think I'm going to go with McDowell. I think I'm going to trust. I think I'm going to trust the fact that he's going to lead a lot early because the speed's in the car, right? Like, there's not a lot of tire fall off. There's a second of tire fall off, but then it plateaus. Like in every track we've seen, like there's that fall off, and then it just maintains lap time. There's not that continual fall off. So as long as he's got the lead, he's going to be extremely hard to pass. I think he has the ability to lead 25, 30 laps and then kind of just finish with 35 points. And then I'm also chasing the upside that he leads the whole first stage, that he has a ton of fast laps and he finishes sixth. So I like the fact that the Penske cars are super strong. I think he's going to be pretty strong. I'm going to play a lot of them. For the price with the Dominator upside because it's not an intermediate track where he should just get blown by Hamlin in 10 laps or something. Like this is a spot where he can lead. So I'm going to go with McDowell as a core play.
I like putting McDowell in their core because the other thing that we didn't talk about with him, like we talked about his price, obviously is cheap, but if you have a guy at that price, if he does get out there and score 100 laps, you are done if you ain't got him. Like imagine what that does to your lineup to have a guy for 6,400 that does lead 100 laps. You don't have an opportunity we don't have this opportunity much in NASCAR DFS to chase something like that, so I think you definitely are going to want to chase it. Let's go with your poor four, and please tell me Christopher Bell is not in your poor four this week.
You had to bring it up. You just had to. He was literally the one guy. And I didn't even want to put him in there, but I was like, I got to do something.
And he smashed.
But that's the perfect example of like, there's a pool of 8 guys. He's the 8th on my list, but anyone can lead in this car. Anyone could hit. So, but no, poor 4, Brad Keselowski leading things off here. I'm not feeling great about it, but I'm putting it out there. Brad Keselowski is in my poor 4. Another one. William Byron. I just don't think I'm going to pay $10,200 for a guy that I don't think leads. And so I could be wrong. He showed up at Martinsville mid-race and just dominated, but they showed speed in practice. They aren't showing that this week. They just aren't showing the speed to contend with Penske and the Gibbs guys. So I'm just not going to be in on William Byron. Mid-range guy. Got to find someone in the mid-range. Eric Jones. He could finish 12th and make me look stupid, but man, he didn't show speed in practice. I just don't feel super good about that play. And then Austin Dillon. Fuck Austin Dillon. I'm done.
Is he just permanent in the poor movement?
Until he proves me wrong, he's permanent. The second he's optimal, I'll give away an Austin Dillon diecast. But until then, no, I'm not doing it.
I will add to it as I will add to the poor, and I will go ahead and add Kyle Larson since you didn't say him. I almost did. There's nothing like Kyle Larson is terrible at this track. I feel like he's not good enough to go out here and lead a bunch of laps and pay off that salary. I don't know. I mean, look at him. He's averaging 1.5 fast laps in 2 races here, and this is Kyle Larson and the best.
I 100% agree.
Right? I mean, yeah. Okay. Let's go with 4 more. These are where we're going to find some leverage in tournaments today. Like guys who we're going to be able to, get some low ownership,
Not getting low ownership on Todd G, but Todd Gilliland's getting a mention here. I didn't go with him in the core 4, but Todd's got to be in there. Is this whole thing supposed to be about low ownership, by the way? I thought this was 4 GPP plays I liked.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to do, man.
Yes, it's my show.
I figure a GPP you like. Normally, when people say GPP play, it is a low owned play, right?
No, it's just like you're playing them for their upside.
That's how I always call it. If I call something a GPP play, I'm thinking that's going to be a low owned play. Like you want to play him in a bigger tournament because he's going to be low owned. GPP play. That's how I always did it in my head.
Yes and no. Like you're more playing them for the upside. You're playing them for the potential that they can be an optimal play to win a tournament. In my opinion, to win the tournament, less so than like Busher, who's a safe.
Maybe that's why I don't win tournaments, though. Maybe that's why
I mean, yes, like a play like Bubba Wallace is only to be played in tournaments. It's only to be played in GPPs. But the same can be said for Christopher Bell. Like I'm not playing. I could play Bell in cash on this slate, but like last week, you wouldn't play Bell in cash if you're playing him with the need of him to dominate. You just play him in tournaments. Don't put that money in cash. If you need him to dominate to be a successful play, you play him in tournaments. So that's how I always look at it. It's less about like ownership, but more about like if you need this play to be a massive dominator or really excel to be a tournament winner, then that's kind of where I'd look at it. But anyways, that's just the way I view it. Everyone's maybe a little bit different. Anyways, God dang it, I got something in my eye. Ty Gibbs. I think it's a little bit lower owned play. I think the Gibbs car is going to be really strong. I think this track suits Gibbs pretty well. Good price point. I think he's the perfect pivot off of Chalk Busher. So from your mindset, he hopefully will come in 15% under owned compared to Busher, maybe even more. And that's some good leverage there. And I think Gibbs has top 5 upside. Maybe even gets his first win. I think he's going to have a strong car. He's due at some point. And I like Gibbs. So Bell is in this one. I don't know if I talked about him yet, but Bell, I'm going to have him as one of my dominator plays off of Blaney and Hamlin, who I think are the chalkier options. I'm going to have Gilliland. I'm going to have Ty Gibbs. Oh, Josh Berry. Although his ownership's been low enough recently that I don't think he sees a ton of ownership. Like people just haven't played a ton of him. So I don't think he's super chalky. So he kind of fits that mold as well. But I think Barry has the ability to finish top 15 again, and that makes him a great option.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be lower owned because you have guys like Daniel Suarez priced, $300 cheaper than him. You have Gregson right there around him, right? You got Busher. Well, he's not priced around him, but then you also have Priest, and even Todd Gilliland is going to garner some ownership as well. So yeah, I definitely think you get Barry low owned. Let's talk about a winner. Give us a winner. I think you already said it was Martin Truex, right?
Ryan Blaney.
All right.
Yeah, Truex was an asshole last week. Holy crap. Like, can you imagine a race where Truex is the favorite to win? He's literally everyone's favorite pick. Everyone's on him, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to run 13th, guys.
Yeah.
And his teammate's going to win and dominate. Like, they come from the same shop, and, like, you're sitting there. How does Truex just absolutely suck and Bell just smash? It's so – oh, my God. Martin
Those
Truex
are the reasons I retired. Stuff like that is why I retired, Larkin. You don't have to tell me. You're preaching to the choir.
You're not retired. You have an article you're about to do, right? You have
don't
an article.
Tell people that. Don't get expectations out.
Don't worry. Jason is coming back out of retirement. And he hasn't even noticed. I've changed the name of the show 3 freaking shows ago. It's not even called that How to Retire because he's not retired.
I keep calling it the How to Retire.
You don't know what to say anymore, do you?
I keep calling it that. You froze up, but I keep calling it the How to Retire from NASCAR DFS. So
you can call it whatever you want. You are so unretired, it's not even funny.
Yeah. I don't know. My Twitter handle says retired, so
give that a week. But no, yeah, I mean, Truex killed us. I do think that's the beauty of DFS, though, right? Like everyone was on him. In a lot of ways, we don't know, right? We can try to set ourselves up the best we can, and that's why when I do the show, I try to cover all bases. I try to say, hey, listen, yeah, I don't like Keselowski, but this is how it works out. This is how it can happen. This is why you should maybe get a little bit of ownership on him if you play a lot of lineups. If you play 5 lineups, and no. But if you play 50 lineups and you completely fake Keselowski, you're probably being a little too sketchy, right?
How many lineups is Larkin playing this weekend?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been trying to talk myself up to 20 for this slate, but I just hate doing it. because I hand build, right? Like I have to have control of everything. And so
Takes
I'm just
so much time to hand build 20 lineups.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it. I don't know. Maybe I'll get to 10, maybe I'll get to 12. I'm just a little pissed off because a lot of the last few weeks I've been one pivot off, right? Like I'm like, oh my God, I get this guy in, I smash. If I get this guy in, I smash. Like the 8th or 9th lineup in my builds would have been really, really good. And because I haven't been building 8, 9 lineups, I've been building 5 or 6. I've just been missing, that type thing. So I kind of want to, I'm starting to talk myself into building 20 just so I can, but to me, it's like, it's great if you get that winning screenshot or if one of those lineups finishes top 5 and you get a big, nice win. But for me, the way I think about it in my head is when I'm right and my 5 lineups are all really good and my core all hits and Sam Mayer doesn't get spun out lap 1 and then wreck on lap 74. When he actually gets a good result, all my lineups are going to do well, and I'm just going to make money, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to triple up. Nice 3x day. Whereas if I make 20 lineups and I have 8 lineups that are built with guys that I didn't need, then that just eats through my profit on the slate, right? So that's why I traditionally don't like doing that. I'm not a guy that chases a screenshot because one of my 20 lineups did good. I'm more of a guy that likes to get 5, 6 lineups built and then hopefully cash 4 or 5 of them and one of them hopefully finish really high. But I don't know. I've been playing around with it. I've kind of been thinking about how I want to attack things in the future because while my ROI has been really good historically, I don't play a lot of volume, and I'm starting to wonder, should I play a lot more volume? Should I build more lineups? Should I be chasing more screenshots and maybe not as much the ROI? And so I don't know. But I'm going to think about it. I'm going to sleep on it overnight. Maybe I'll have 20 lineups tomorrow, or maybe I'll have 6.
I'll just do what makes you happy, Larkin. That's the best I can give you with anything in life, right? Is do what makes you happy. But I need to take my own advice and stop doing podcasts about Gateway and worldwide technology racing. And let's stop talking about this so we can all move on with our night and our days and get out of here.
Appreciate everyone checking out the show. If you would like to indulge me, please sign up at dailyfanracing.com. Got all of our projections, breakdowns. I wrote 4,100 words on the truck race. I don't know why. It's a lot of freaking words. Only for chalk Corey Heim to hit and made it very boring. But, we try to put out the best content we do. I put in a lot of work. We have a good group of guys, and hopefully you can join us. If not, subscribe to the channel. Be here when these shows pop up. I think I still want to add some more stuff, so I'm not entirely sure. Maybe I'll do some other videos when we're not doing ours or throw some extra content out there. But subscribe so you're always here for whatever we drop.
See you guys.
Oh, that's it. All right.
That's it. Sorry.
I thought you were going to do like a farewell. But anyways.
Farewell. Bye.